Welcome once again to some great English parish churches. This time we're in Barnack, at the Church of St John the Baptist. Barnack is famous throughout Britain for its spectacular Saxon tower, possibly one of the earliest. It's often noticed that the church was approached by a diagonal path crossing the churchyard, as at Barnack. This was the usual custom, and the reason for this was that it used to be thought that the devil could only travel in straight lines, as he was unable to turn corners. The tower has a spire with octagonal sides. The two lower sections of the tower are entirely Saxon and date from around 1000 AD. Barnack is an unusually large and spacious church, which consists of a long chancel and flanked on the south by the Lady Chapel. Look at this fine ball flower work. And here is that spectacular tower. This is the south face of the tower, and the most interesting. It's got a round-headed doorway cut straight through the wall, giving an entrance to the tower, but it probably had more ceremonial significance. That's an early sundial. The upper part has a triangular-headed opening containing a mid-wall slat which is pierced with a complicated basketwork pattern. The clock was made about 1870. On the west face, there is a triangular-headed window outlined in stone. To the right is a large triangular-headed doorway closed by a wooden door, seeming to hang in mid-air. The corners of the tower were constructed of long and short work, the curling stones being laid vertically and horizontally alternately. This north part of the churchyard was usually never consecrated and was known as the Devil's Side, where heretics, infidels and suicides and anyone considered outside the pale of the church was buried, usually at night, without ceremony of any kind. This north door of the church was only used on special occasions. It was left open at christenings so that any evil spirits thrown out by the newly baptized infants could escape. This is an early 13th century porch, strengthened by buttresses, but nevertheless having its walls affecting an outward lean. The interior of the porch has a peculiar conical vaulted ceiling. The side walls of the porch each have an arcade of 4 blind arches. This is a transitional feature, and where aspects of the Saxon semicircular arch meet with the later Norman feature. Internally, the tower opens to the nave by an impressive round-headed archway. It's nearly 20 feet high and one of the most notable of its kind in the country. This is a turning space inserted in the southwest corner of the tower. It gave access to the upper floors. Here on the west wall is a triangular-headed recess outlined in stripwork containing a stone seat. Some interesting capital carving there. This north arcade was built about 1190 and was immediately followed by the south arcade and the large external porch. These pillars have remarkable foliage capitals of unusual design. A youthful knight. This early 13th century font is among the outstanding features of the church. It stands on a low rectangular base, and the central column supporting the bowl is surrounded by an elegant arcade of 8 arches rising from a single base. This carved effigy, found at the east end of the north aisle, displays a seated and bearded representation of our Lord. It was discovered under the north aisle floor in 1931. Here in the north chapel is a tall, late, semicircular arch that springs from half-round respondents. It opens into a small chapel of about the same date, 1100. This is a very battered effigy of a cross-legged knight in chain armour who is believed to be Geoffrey de Barnack, and beside him his granddaughter. A string course runs round the walls at windowsill level, being raised on the south side to clear the piscine and sedilia. The piscina and triple sedilia are notable. The highly ornate piscina has an elaborate canopy which is flanked by pinnacles. Unfortunately, these are now incomplete. In the sedilia, at each end there is a carved devil's head, and between the first two arches is found a well-carved head with arms extended upward, as if to support the weight of the hood. Between the second and third arches is a devil's head that has a bat above it. The Lady Chapel was created in around 1500. It was built by the Walcott family to contain their tombs. An Anglo-Saxon grave cover, possibly late 1000. It is thought to be incomplete and could have been carved by a novice. This statue of the Virgin and Child was made in the 1930s. To its left is a carved statue dating to the early 1500s. It's thought to represent the conception of Christ. Also found here is a long diagonal squint. The arms of the Walcott family. The painted roof was a Victorian addition. As was the rood screen. In a glass-fronted display case, we can see ancient artifacts that have been found in the church environs. Just outside the south porch, a memorial grave to an individual who would have been a contemporary of William Shakespeare. I hope that you've enjoyed our visit to Barnack Church.